As social first publishers, how do you connect with your audiences in ways that are more meaningful than just it floated through my feed and maybe I saw it somewhere? And
the old idea of a brand is that you would go to a website, read it, and it would be such a good story that you would decide in your brain somewhere that you wanted to go back to it sometime in the future. Well, now, with these social platforms, for me, one of the things that's most attractive about them is that when someone sees a great story there, it's 1 or 2 clicks away to follow that page. And so the brand is like mechanically inserted into their lives.
But do you feel that there are news stories that can't be told on social video platforms because they're not happy or inspiring or likable?
We're at our best when we're teaching about things. We do a little bit less of platform-specific work. But one of the things that makes me most hopeful about what we're doing is that our most popular video ever on Facebook was a 6-minute video just explaining what the hell is going on in the Syrian civil war. These platforms have their kind of preferred mode, but I just want to make sure that the people in here that make stories and make media know, if you make a really good thing, that doesn't mean that it won't work on these platforms.
So at NowThis, we do break up our newsroom into kind of platform-based teams where we have specific people working on Instagram, Snapchat, Discover, Facebook, etc. Because we found out pretty early on that the most important thing that you can do at your organization is keep in mind what the platform was built for. Yeah. So going back to that idea of, millennials don't care about hard news, and we're trying to bust those expectations, we would put maybe a heartbreaking photo of something happening with the Ebola crisis in West Africa, summer 2014, and what was Instagram built for? It was built for compelling visuals. The unit of engagement on that platform is a heart, right? So who is going to double tap or want to put a heart on a video or an image that depresses them? And so we kind of went back to the drawing board and we're like, okay, what was Instagram built for? We do have beautiful, compelling visuals, but let's think about the editorial angle of the stories. Maybe what we do instead is find, this woman who is a heroic nurse who's working to save her village and her family, and people will be inspired by her, and people might actually engage with what that platform's unit of engagement is.
We can grab the next question.
I'd love to know just about, again, more specifics on your revenue model, and specifically, how are you being compensated for the video you create today? Is that, and I guess secondly, as a content provider, we create an enormous amount of video content, but how would you get into social media and presumably try to generate revenue off of that?
For us, we have pre-roll on YouTube, and that pays money. They're pretty good about working with partners and sharing revenue. We're able to sell ads into that. We do have a syndication deal, actually. MSN syndicates a lot of our videos, and there is some revenue as a result of that.
Syndicates all of our videos.
Yeah. Other partners like this. Though I don't expect those to be huge revenue streams. There is the branded content model, which is something that Vox Media cares deeply about. Works really well. There's sponsored series, which is. I think that there are going to be new models too. Something that. I often try to look to podcasts and to other individual YouTubers to try to get a sense of how people are paying the bills, because for me, I have a salary and we have an investment from Vox Media. For people who are doing it on their own, they're the ones really figuring this out first. And what I see people doing are having mid-roll ads and having direct support through Patreon, which is a sort of consistent crowdfunding model. So some of my favorite YouTube channels, they're getting between $3,000 and $20,000 a month based on those models. They're not small, but I hope that we can come up with something more solid. So that's why I really care about building the amount of time the audience spends with us, and that is going to be the thing that sustains us.
I'll talk more broadly if you don't mind. I'll just say, Insider makes money 3 ways. We make money we have a small but fast-growing commerce business where we'll actually feature a product. These platforms pay us. MSN also pays us. Facebook pays us. The checks are getting bigger every month. And then the third business is advertising sales, and so that's working with clients like Dunkin' Donuts or Diet Coke or Microsoft.
What are you guys doing for captions? Are you being required by FCC? Where do you stand on that? Second thing is, you guys have such universal content. I hope that you're starting to translate it for Hispanic market in the United States and distribute it more widely. More widely. And just as far as having the best explainer companies, platforms in the world, you present 4 of the best. If AJ Plus was up there, it'd be like, over the moon.
Thanks.
So we actually, a little bit we work with we're owned by a German media conglomerate called Axel Springer, and they translate some of our stuff into German, so that's great. And then beyond that, it's a great idea, but beyond that, an interesting thought just for the room is just, I was talking to someone from Tasty, which is, we're big, Tasty's like the biggest.
They're pretty big.
Yeah. They're bigger than Beyonce. Or that's literally in their slide deck.
Also, they came out of nowhere.
Yeah, it's crazy. But what they do is they are not sound dependent, and they're not like word dependent. You get the point of their videos without any words at all. And so they work in Asia, they work in South America, they work all over the globe.
We've started to translate our content. We translate into Spanish regularly. We actually have a NowThis Mandarin page where we translate into Mandarin, and then we also publish to Weibo and WeChat and platforms in China. We started to translate into Hindi and Urdu, and we're looking at other languages, and we're working with sort of like freelance translators and maybe companies like yours to see how we can expand our offerings. But in terms of actual captions, we actually do manual subtitling for all of our videos. We've found that is the fastest way so far. We would love to figure out SRT files with Facebook. We haven't yet. You guys have done more of that, but it's something that
I'm wondering if you've learned lessons about Facebook Live, given that that's kind of now the priority. They're paying platforms. Are there any particular, you see a lot of people basically slapping TV onto Facebook Live. Doesn't seem to be super successful, but I'm wondering if there are any styles or things that you've learned, in experimenting with that.
I don't think that programming television for Facebook Live is working or necessarily going to work. What we have found is most effective is sort of the fly on the wall Facebook Live. So anti-Trump protests marching up Broadway in Manhattan, or protests against the Dakota Access Pipeline that were happening around the country in all 50 states. These are the lives that we've seen have really paid off the most. And it's not necessarily even about having a host or an anchor, but about giving the user a window into something that they wouldn't have had before. One of my coolest experiences was on the campaign trail in Florida. I live streamed from my phone because this was pre-API, where you couldn't have like fancy cameras and graphics with Facebook Live, but just streaming a Bernie Sanders rally from my phone, and 33,000 people were watching it with me. And I was just like, okay, this is a cool moment. I'm giving 33,000 people a window that they wouldn't have previously had.
My question basically is, what are all of you going to do when Facebook decides that they're not going to be paying you anymore for Facebook Live or other videos and turns the spigot off like they did?
So first off, I don't think they're going to stop paying us. I think they're going to pay us more. I think they're excited about what we do. I think we drive engagement for these platforms. I'm very excited to be doing well on other platforms. I don't think you ever want to be in a position where you're depending on one, and we're not going to end up that way.
I think he's right that Facebook isn't going to let that audience go. If they do, we're on 14 other platforms. Again, Discover, Twitter, etc., places where we also monetize and sell ads and have mid-roll or whatever it is. And then again, branded content. Branded content so far goes on platforms like Facebook, but it's not solely created for Facebook. It goes on YouTube, it goes on various other platforms that I think, as long as there is a vehicle to distribute it, then a distributed media company is going to be okay. Yeah.
It is impossible to ignore their importance, and as like a huge platform to be on, and regardless of how they enable spreading of misinformation. They
have to fix that.
It is possible for anybody in this room to make a much better, much more popular video than any of us up here with your cell phone today, and that is the thing that makes me most excited about making video, is that we are part of a democratized creation scheme, and it forces all of us to be better. And I think that it's really fun to think about. Like, just some of the things that I love the most are the most weird and individual, and could only be made by that individual person. And so I just want all us to remember, like, we have that power, and like that is a benefit of being in a place like Facebook or any of these other platforms. And we should use it. We should use it to inform the world or spread our own perspective.